Hello everyone, welcome to Tech with Sean. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today our topic of discussion is Microsoft 365 versus Google Workspace. Before we start, I just want to make it clear that if you're looking for an exact alternative for either of these applications, you're not going to find it here. Meaning don't expect a perfect replacement for every single applications. There are some apps in 365 for which there are no alternatives in Google Workspace, and then there are some apps in Google Workspace for which there aren't any available alternatives in 365. There are also applications that have similar use cases but differ in so many different ways in both platforms. But if you're here to find out which platform is better suited for your needs and what each platform provides, then you're in the right place. I think that the problem with trying to find an objective answer as to which platform is better is that usually the internet is filled with bias. Even if you have hundreds or thousands of articles that are detailing the difference between Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, you'll find that a majority of these articles are just trying to sell their product. This is why when I'm trying to pick between two products and I come across an article by an organization, I always first make sure to go through what they're selling in order to figure out if their verdict is biased or not. Because, and this is especially true when it comes to Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, is that you have to understand there is no one product fits everyone or one platform fits everyone. Depending on certain factors such as the size of your business, the preferences of your employees, the security requirements, at the end of the day, all this is going to end up influencing your decision regardless of the feature sets that each one provides. But in the end, is there an objective answer to the question of which is better between these two platforms? Yes, there is. If you write down your business requirements, then according to those requirements, there is going to be an objective answer. This is why the first thing that you have to do if you're a system administrator trying to decide which product is better for your organization, or if you're a consultant trying to find a suitable application for your clients, write down the business requirements and write down the other things that may be a factor. For example, let's say you're migrating from one platform to another, then you have to consider how much training overheads are you going to incur. Is it that significant? Are a majority of your users in the organization tech savvy enough to adapt to the new applications very quickly, or is it going to cause business continuity issues? And are the feature sets enough to justify the shift from one platform to another? These are all things that you will have to consider at the end of the day. Now that all that's out of the way, let's get started. Let's start with the biggest advantage that 365 has over Workspace, and that advantage itself could potentially make the decision for you. And that is the fact that Microsoft Office packages have just been around for the longest time. So if you're looking to shift an entire organization, especially large enterprises who have become very accustomed to the use of these Office applications, then you might have a hard time. Another thing is that if you're dealing with clients or other businesses, there's a good chance a large majority of them are using Office applications. And when you're sending documents or receiving documents, the formatting, the styling, all this is going to be an issue when the files are converted, as it could either start looking very wonky or just not as intended. One thing you can do though is have a local version of Office without cloud capabilities, which is much cheaper and usually has one-time payments, and then use Google Workspace as your mail and collaboration platform. This is what a lot of people who feel that they're more comfortable with using Google applications will generally tend to do. But just keep in mind that you will lose out on seamless workflow that you'll have if you were to stick to a particular platform. Let's start with the pricing schemes. Google Workspace has two pricing schemes, the flexible plan and the annual or fixed term plan. The flexible plan allows you to bill monthly, which makes temporary or short contractual employment very feasible, especially because it charges you exactly for how much you use the subscription. Let's say that you were to only use the plan for half a month, then you will only be billed for half a month. So as the name implies, it's flexible. If you're going for the business subscriptions, on the other hand, on Workspace, then you will only be able to use the flexible plan unless you were to go through a reseller or contact the Google sales team and have them agree to put you on a fixed or annual plan. So what is a fixed or annual plan? With a fixed plan, you are committing for an year of using the subscription at a minimum. And if you feel that you want to add a subscription in between that year, you can, and you will be billed according to when you purchased the new licenses. Let's say you start a new license in the mid of May, then you will only pay for half the month of May and then continue to pay the full monthly rate starting from the following month. You can find how the pricing works on their support page where they've broken it down. When it comes to Microsoft, you can also pay monthly or annually. Obviously, if you were to purchase the annual subscription, you would be paying less than if you were to purchase the monthly subscription and use it for 12 whole months. But if you are going to have temporary employment contracts lasting less than a year, definitely go for the monthly pricing. There's no half a month of payment in the Microsoft subscriptions like the Google Workspace plan. So in that regard, Google definitely provides a much better scheme. However, the problem with the Google plans is that if you want to mix and match plans, like give half your users Business Starter and the other half Business Plus for whatever reason, you will not be able to do this. There are some exceptions. If you speak to the Google sales team, you might be able to do something about this. But essentially, both Google and Microsoft give you a 300 user limit in the business plans. What this means is that if with Google you were to reach the 300 limit with your business plan and you have 305 users, you would have to opt for the enterprise plan for all 305 users. But with Microsoft 365, if you were to reach 300 users in, let's say, the business basic plan, then you can add the other 5 users into a business standard plan and you wouldn't have to convert the 300 users into any other subscription. I think this is phenomenal because especially with a lot of the clients I used to work with, they wouldn't reach the 300 user limit but would still want to use, let's say, enterprise plans for certain users because they want these users to have higher security and higher storage. So the flexibility in those scenarios really help. Again, as I said, Google may make exceptions depending on your case, but you would have to contact them to find out if you're eligible. Before we discuss the pricing, just keep in mind that depending on which country you live in, or if you're purchasing through a partner or a reseller, you may be given a discounted price for a limited amount of time. But what we're going to be talking about here are prices without the discounts, so don't expect the prices to be the same wherever you are. Now, we're not going to dive deep into each part of the plan. That will hopefully be on a separate video, but we're just going to take a brief look at the pricing of the plans and discuss some of the features that the plans provide within the rest of this video. As of right now, Microsoft provides a few sets of plans, 4 business plans: Business Basic, Business Standard, Business Premium, and Apps for Business. Apps for Business does not come with Exchange Online, which means that it does not provide email capabilities, but it has most of the other features that comes with Office 365. And then there's the 3 enterprise plans, the E3, E5, and the Apps for Enterprise. At this point, I just want to elaborate that we're talking about Microsoft 365 plans and not the Office 365 plans. Yes, there's a difference, but that's a topic for a whole different video. Other than those 2 sets of plans, there's other plans such as for education, the A1, A3, and A5, and for frontline workers, the F1 and the F3 plans. So there's quite a lot of plans, a lot of flexibility. I believe the education plans are free for institutions that qualify both for Microsoft and Google. Just go check if you're interested. I'll put the link in the description for that. And the frontline plans in Microsoft 365 are a little more limiting compared to the business and the enterprise plan. Also link in the description if you want to read more about it. Our focus today though is going to be on the business and enterprise plans only. As for the Google plans, you have 4 different plans: 3 business, the starter, standard, and plus, and 1 enterprise plans which is flexible according to your requirements. The pricing is itself very similar when it comes to the business plans, but enterprise can't really be compared because the price varies in the Google Workspace plans and you would have to contact their sales team or a reseller in order to find out what the prices are like for the enterprise editions. Both Google and Microsoft restrict their business plans with a 300 user limit, as I mentioned earlier, so just keep that in mind. When it comes to email, the primary concerns are usually storage and security, but that will be under the storage and security section of this video. But very briefly, when it comes to storage, Google Workspace shares Google Drive storage with email, whereas in Microsoft 365, storage for email is separated from OneDrive storage. But what we're going to focus on here in the email section are the sending and receiving limitations. I wanted to talk about user interface or UI, but let's face it, that's extremely subjective. Both Gmail and Outlook web application are beautiful and easy to use, but personally, I find the Gmail UI cleaner. You can use Gmail on the Outlook desktop application as well if you wanted to, but it is more optimized to handle Exchange Server or Exchange Online mails. In terms of the sending and receiving limitations, Gmail for Business allows you to send up to 25 megabytes of email in size and receive up to 50 megabytes of email. If you wanted to attach and send files larger than 25 MB, then you can send it as a Google Drive link and have your recipient download that file so that even if you were to take it down from the drive, they would still have the file locally. With Microsoft's Exchange Online, you can send up to 150 megabytes of email in size using the desktop application and 112 megabytes of email using the Outlook web application. But be careful, depending on encoding, the file may increase in size by an additional 33%, but the translation encoding only applies if the email is routed outside the Microsoft data centers. Now, if your organization has a marketing or sales team that sends email in bulk, then you'll want to be able to send large amounts of email. In Workspace, Gmail allows you to send 2,000 emails and reach up to 10,000 recipients in 24 hours, but only 3,000 recipients outside your organization's domain. Once you hit any of these limits, you will get a temporary suspension and you will be unable to send any emails for 24 hours, starting from the second you sent the first email of the day. When it comes to receiving email, Gmail allows you to get 60 emails a minute, 3,600 emails in an hour, and 86,400 emails in a day. Again, if you hit the limit, you will be suspended from receiving emails and not be able to get anything for the next 24 hours, and any email that is received during the suspension is lost forever. With Microsoft 365, you can send to up to 10,000 recipients a day, but you can only send 30 mails per minute, and if you did send any more, it will automatically be sent in the subsequent minutes. Once you hit the 10,000 limit, you will not be able to send any mails for 24 hours, starting from the second you sent the first email of that day. When it comes to receiving, you can send up to 3,600 mails an hour across all subscriptions. Any more and the email will bounce back to the sender with an NDR. Storage is one of those things that can really make or break your decision, and storage is probably one of the reasons that you might just want to switch to Workspace. Microsoft provides 1 terabyte of OneDrive storage for all 4 of their business subscriptions, regardless of whether you get Business Basic, Standard or Premium, which is honestly not that great. I mean, it's not terrible. You do still get a separate 100 gigs for email, separate storage for SharePoint, Microsoft Stream, but not everyone is going to be using email a lot or SharePoint or Stream, especially if your organization focuses on media and stores a lot of heavy files. 1 terabyte isn't going to cut it. You can purchase storage for extra cost per month if you want to. You can opt for the enterprise subscription and get unlimited storage, but I mean, why would you want to pay so much for the enterprise edition if storage is your only concern? Workspace, on the other hand, has a terrible starter package, giving you only 30 gigs for Business Starter. But with Business Standard, you get 2 terabytes, and with Business Plus, you get 5 terabytes. And even though email storage is shared with Drive in Workspace, it still destroys OneDrive's measly 1 terabyte. In both Workspace and 365, the enterprise plans give you unlimited storage. To be more precise, you need to have 5 or more users to take advantage of the unlimited storage, and with Microsoft, you get 5 terabytes and need to contact support to convert that into unlimited storage. I want to address the entry-level plans because chances are a lot of people who are watching this video are under strict budgetary constraints from their employers. So you want something affordable but also something very powerful for productivity. Well, you're in luck because both these platforms provide incredible features within their cheapest plans, but when it comes to the cheapest, there is a very clear winner. Google Workspace provides Business Starter, which is $6 a user a month subscription. It's $1 more expensive than Microsoft Business Basic, but in most scenarios, this isn't going to be the deal breaker. What is the deal breaker though is the monumental difference between storage, which we discussed earlier. Google Workspace Business Starter provides you 30 gigs of cloud storage, which is really bad. Maybe that's something that can be overlooked if it was just file storage, but unfortunately that 30 gigs is also shared with your email. Now I can see how some might think that 30 gigs is more than enough, but when comparing to what Microsoft Business Basic offers, 30 just seems negligible. With Microsoft's Business Basic, you get 1 terabyte of cloud storage, which is not shared with email. For your email, you get 50 gigs plus another 50 gigs of archive storage, which you can activate anytime. So essentially, you have 100 gigabytes for email and 1 terabyte storage for files in your OneDrive. And that's personal storage per user. Now, as you can see, that's a massive difference. So unless you are only really comfortable with the Google ecosystem or just have a very strong reason for staying with Google as a business on a very tight budget, I just highly recommend you go for Microsoft 365 Business Basic. Granted, you're okay with how the email, the security, and the other things in Microsoft when compared to Google, which we'll discuss in just a sec. Also, don't consider the desktop application access in Microsoft 365 to be a factor when going for the cheapest plan. Because with Business Basic, you can only work online, you cannot download and work with the applications offline, and yes, this does apply to the Outlook desktop app as well. Collaboration is an interesting topic. It's probably one of the biggest advantages of using either of these platforms, especially due to the fact that a lot of organizations these days are kind of being forced into a remote workforce situation. And without collaborative features, remote working isn't going to be very effective. Both Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace provide live collaboration, which means you would be able to see all changes made to documents, sheets, slides in real time. And keep in mind that Google Workspace was created specifically for the cloud. And because of this, I think the real-time collaboration has always been great with Workspace or G Suite. Microsoft has caught up to Google though, and in terms of updates happening in real time, there's almost no difference at all anymore. When it comes to shared calendars, both Google Calendar and Outlook work really well. You can also schedule meetings using Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, and those meetings are updated almost instantaneously on your calendar and on the calendars of the people that you've invited. So when it comes to ease of collaboration, I think Workspace and 365 is kind of neck and neck. But I think there's a few tiebreakers that propels 365 to the next level, and depending on your business requirements, this could either make a difference or not matter at all. The first is the ability to have desktop applications and have collaboration built into those desktop applications, which means you wouldn't have to open up the applications in a browser every time that you wanted to collaborate on a file with someone. And since the desktop applications are more feature-packed than the browser versions of Office applications, this could make a huge difference. Just keep in mind, you would need to have a license that is higher than Business Basic that will give you the desktop apps. The second is SharePoint Online, and if you don't know what SharePoint Online is, I have a video on it, more like an in-depth beginner's guide, but you can check it out if you're interested. I'll leave a link in the description. But for now, just think of SharePoint as a team collaboration platform which serves as a centralized location to access files. Basically a file server that gives you rich document management features. Now, there is an alternative to SharePoint on Workspace, and that's called Google Sites. And along with shared drives, you could mimic something similar to SharePoint Online, but to call it an alternative would be a stretch because there's just huge differences in the functionalities that they provide. You can go into the Google Workspace Learning Center and find this support article that tells you exactly how you can replace SharePoint Online with Google Workspace, but even there you'll find a note that says some features do not directly correspond in Google Workspace and are not covered in this guide. But the guide is a good place to start, especially if you're only looking to fulfill some of the basic features that SharePoint Online provides. I think Google Sites plus shared drives is definitely easier to set up and easy to master in general. Whereas SharePoint Online has more of a steep learning curve if you're trying to get the maximum advantage of it. So I wouldn't say it's difficult to learn, but it's definitely going to be difficult if you're planning to become an expert on it. So if your organization is used to heavily working with SharePoint Online, or you think you would benefit greatly from something like SharePoint Online, then moving to Workspace might not be the best idea. The conversation about collaboration isn't complete without talking about Microsoft Teams and Google Meet. The thing that makes the biggest difference between Meet and Teams is that Teams has chat, video and audio all integrated into a single platform. Whereas with Google Workspace, you need to use Google Chat for chatting and Google Meet for the audio and video conferencing. It is a little tedious, so I'm seriously hoping that they integrate Chat and Meet in the future because it really does hinder the collaboration aspect. And because of this, I think Teams is leagues ahead regardless of the other differences. But let's discuss those differences as well. In terms of participants, Microsoft provides a 300 participant limit starting from their cheapest plans, whereas Google Workspace only gives you 150 and a maximum of 250 if you reach their enterprise plan. I don't think this is going to be much of an issue because it's a very rare occasion to have over 150 people on a call, let alone 300, but with the introduction of breakout rooms in both Meet and Teams, I guess I could see it happening. Usually, though, if you were holding large conferences or webinars for that matter, and you only want a few people speaking, you could create what's called a live event in both Meet and Teams. Meet allows you to have up to 100,000 viewers in their live events, and Teams only allows up to 10,000. Microsoft is increasing the limit to 20,000 until June. They could extend this or even make this increase permanent after, but there's no plans for that yet. They also state that using the Microsoft 365 Assistance program, you can get up to 100,000 attendees. Google Meet and Microsoft Teams support recordings for both the meetings and live events. They both also support screen sharing. Teams allows you to control the device of the person who is sharing their screen if you give them permission, and I think you can do this with Meet as well, but you need to jump through a few hoops like downloading the Chrome Remote Desktop extension. They both have mobile applications, but only Teams has the desktop app, but that's where my biggest complaint with Teams is. The Teams desktop app is great, but it is memory intensive. So if you have a device that is 4 GB RAM or less, then it takes forever to get anything done. So I suggest you use the browser version of Teams if you have a laptop or a PC that's 4 GB RAM or less. This will hinder some features, but fortunately none of the main features will be blocked. There's been a lot of speculation in regards to how Google handles customer data, and when people are choosing between 365 and Workspace, a very popular argument against Google has been that they use customer data to provide targeted ads. But if you just head to the Google Workspace security white papers, you'll find that they explicitly state that this is not the case, and that when it comes to their core services, they do not use data for advertising purposes, and they do not intend to do so in the future. Of course, if your employees are logged into their account and they do visit non-core services, their data will probably be harvested, but if this is an issue for you, you can always disable access to these non-core services through the admin panel. They also go on to state that if they do use customer data, it is for beneficial services such as spam filtering, search indexing, virus detection, and spell check. Heading to the Office 365 Security and Compliance white papers, you'll find that their privacy policy is very similar. So when it comes to sharing data without the customer's permission, I don't think it's going to be an issue with either platforms. The bigger concern though is human error, and what are the features that each platform provides to limit these errors? Or what are the extra features that you receive to improve your organizational security? The first thing we have to talk about is data loss prevention, or DLP. For those of you who don't know what DLP is, it is basically the measure taken to ensure that organizational data does not get into the hands of unauthorized parties, because that is something that happens too often, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Google Workspace only allows the use of DLP features for the enterprise editions. So if you're planning to go for the business subscriptions, you won't be getting any DLP features. But if you do end up going for the enterprise editions, you will be able to apply predefined content detectors so that it detects sensitive information like social security numbers, credit card numbers, or other personally identifiable information. Then you can set up automatic responses so that it blocks whatever documents are being sent with that particular sensitive information. You will also be able to create custom DLP rules as well if you need to. For example, let's say your organization uses unique identifiers for employees and those numbers should not be given to outsiders. Well, if any of those numbers end up in files on your drive or your mail, you can detect it and set the DLP up in a way that it prohibits sending any content with that unique identifier into the wrong hands. Microsoft DLP solution works quite the same way. It's a little more fleshed out. Microsoft provides protection on Teams as well, like information sent in chat and team channels. I'm not sure if Google protects sensitive information on Google Meet. It's not mentioned anywhere, and they specify that the DLP rules are for Google Drive and Gmail only. The Microsoft DLP also comes bundled in with the enterprise packages only, the Microsoft 365 E3 and the E5. But if you want it for your business standard or business premium, what you can do is purchase it as an add-on for around $3 a user a month. It also comes bundled in with other add-ons like the Exchange Online Plan 2 license, so it's nice that they've put in some flexibility there. Some flack that Microsoft gets regarding their mail is about their spam filter, but I genuinely didn't face issues with spam when I was using Exchange Online, and neither did many of the clients I worked with. Don't get me wrong, there were some who had issues, but these emails were from newsletters they had signed up for. And for those people, all I had to do was go into their admin centers and blacklist the specific domains or senders. The funny thing is, when I was doing the research for this video, I came across TechRadar's article, and they had mentioned that Exchange Online does not allow blacklisting and whitelisting of domains. You can whitelist and blacklist domains and senders with both Gmail for Business and Exchange Online. This is a fact. I have done it in both, and they both make it super simple to do as well. Now, what about phishing and impersonation security measures? When it comes to impersonation in both the platforms and all their plans, you get the ability to set up your DKIM and DMARC records. They don't make it mandatory to set up, but I'm telling you, do it. It goes a long way in stopping spoofing attacks. It's free, so it's just unnecessary risk not to do it. For phishing protection, Google provides anti-phishing measures for all plans without discrimination. Microsoft, however, does provide anti-phishing capabilities in the Exchange Online protection, which comes with all plans. But in order to get more granular controls and better protection for both impersonation and phishing, you do need to either get the Microsoft Defender for Office 365, which used to be known as Advanced Threat Protection, or go for Business Premium or higher license, which comes with Advanced Threat Protection. There's a Plan 1 and Plan 2 for that, and I believe that with the Plan 2, you get things like Attack Simulator, which allows you to launch campaigns on employees by sending fake phishing emails, and other attack simulations to find out who exactly is vulnerable in your organization. I think overall, without add-ons, when it comes to the cheaper business packages, Google definitely provides better control over phishing and impersonation security. But if you do purchase Microsoft Defender for Office 365 or a plan including Defender for Office 365, it just gives you much more control when compared to what you get with Google Workspace. Other than that, you get the standard security measures these days with both the platforms, such as two-factor authentication, single sign-on, encryption at rest and in transit. You also get e-discovery options with both of them. Definitely go for the Enterprise Edition if you want beefed up security. And as for Microsoft, also go for the Enterprise Editions if you want better security. But if you do want to stick with the business subscription and target specific security measures, then you can do so by purchasing add-ons for your subscription. There's a lot more to talk about regarding security, like a lot more. Conditional access, or as Google calls it, context-aware access, Microsoft's MCAS, the endpoint management security solutions, but all that could make this video exponentially long, and I feel that this is already too much for people that are just looking to make a quick decision. I will be breaking those things down one by one in future videos though, so stay tuned for that. I can't really speak to Google's reliability to support because I've never had any experiences with them, but they do have two support packages. The free one that comes with the normal subscription and a premium support which promises to give you all these things. When it comes to Microsoft, I can say they're pretty great with their support. I've used paid accounts and even trial accounts to create support tickets, and they've been really fast with the response regardless. In a few clicks of the button, your admin can create a support ticket and one of the agents will usually contact you within the hour. You can track the status of your ticket from the admin page as well. The agents I've dealt with have been pretty professional and very knowledgeable, even when it comes to support on very minute issues or just questions I had about subscriptions. Keep in mind that when you're trying to get the support from partners or resellers, it can either be significantly worse or better. I think that with Microsoft, you usually get more. Especially with add-ons, there's just much more in terms of features, and a majority of them we couldn't even discuss. But just because you get more doesn't mean that it's better by any means. Workspace is absolutely great, and the fact that it's even competing with 365 is a big deal because it makes sense for Microsoft to be dominating this market just because of how widely known and how comfortable people are with Office applications. But I think, again, depending on your business objective, Workspace could objectively be the better choice for your organization. Don't fall for these articles by organizations that claim Microsoft is definitely the winner or that Workspace is definitely the winner. It just doesn't work like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please support me by subscribing and liking. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and if you think that anything I said was wrong, feel free to correct me on the comment section and I will pin your comment and we can have a discussion about it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.